I think he has eroded a norm in America, which is that there is a touchstone. The truth is real. There is a touchstone that is the truth, and we measure our leaders by their tether to that touchstone. You know, when Barack Obama said something about health insurance that was inaccurate, he was held accountable. He had to explain. The danger I saw in Trump and still see is that the lies are so extensive that they could wash away the touchstone, and we would stop judging without even realizing it, but drop the norm that it matters whether our leaders tell the truth or not. And so he did that by beating down the press, by constantly reinforcing the preconceptions of the members of his political cult. And it's a long walk back from a place where we've lost that at the center of American life. And on top of that, closer to my work, is he's intentionally taken a flamethrower to the Department of Justice and the FBI for reasons that I understand. If you think about his worldview, he knew if a threat was going to come to him, that's where it would come. And so he would prep that battlefield by burning it down long in advance. And now he's pulling on those reserves among his supporters. I told you they were corrupt. I told you they were evil. And that's a dangerous place to be, because you can criticize and should criticize government institutions, but we need to see those justice institutions as separate from the political. And he's made sure, I mean, even to say this, if you put this in a script to be rejected, the notion that the FBI is a bunch of leftists bent on destroying Republicans in the United States is so crazy that just to say it out loud seems silly, but there are millions of Americans who believe that because it's been repeated over and over and over again. So I mean, I could go on with the depressing list, but that's probably enough right now.
What's your biggest worry if there was a second Trump presidency? What more damage could he do?
I'm loath to be too prescriptive because I can see ways that he could do more damage.
Also, you don't want to give him ideas,
correct,
I suppose.
Correct. Correct. I think the danger, maybe I'll just say it in this way. I think he understands better how things work, and his supporting cast would be even deeper towards the bottom of the barrel than the last time. And so he would be the retribution president with a better understanding of the levers of power, surrounded by a group of people who are looking to burn it all down. And our system would survive that, but he could do things that would be much more lasting damage than he did the last time.
The worrying thing that I'm reading is that his campaign team are actually much more focused and much more effective and efficient than the rather kind of ragbag team that he had in 2016, because I think they signed up thinking it would be a jolly adventure.
Yeah.
And we're not going to win, but it'll be a laugh. Whereas this lot now that he has, he's cleared out, either he's cleared out or his family have cleared themselves out, but there's no sign of Ivanka and Jared, and although it's very, very hard-nosed, thorough, highly professional campaigners, and that's the worrying thing. I mean, you mentioned a cult. The Republican, and you were previously registered as a Republican voter. You've been a Republican voter, yeah?
Correct.
So how do you feel about the Republican Party? Because, you know, they're not doing much to stop this. We've had Republicans. There was a Republican representative who talked about how the FBI should be defunded and dismantled. You know, defunding the police was the criticism, was a mantra that the right used against the left 4 or 5 years ago as something that the extremist left were talking about. But here's a Republican talking about dismantling, defunding.
Yeah, I don't think the Republican Party exists anymore in the United States. And some sign of that is the last time there was a Republican presidential campaign, they didn't have a platform. Right? They don't stand for anything. That's why it wasn't being, again, trying to be wise in calling it a cult. It is a cult of personality. And it's just about hating and grievance, and it's centered on this person. And so it's hard to even recognize it. Now, there are still Republican office holders, and most of them want to keep their office enough that they will say or do anything to placate the base, because the base could deprive them of their office by voting against them in a primary election. And so there's a cynical, deeply cynical crust at the top, and then a whole lot of people who've been harvested by a demagogue. This was the great fear of the founders in America, and we're seeing a once, not just in a lifetime, once in many lifetimes demagogue. And he will not succeed, but it sounds contradictory, but to assure you he's not going to succeed in being elected president, but only if the American people participate the way they did last time and to recognize the danger they face. CNN got a lot of criticism for its town hall in the States, and I had a different...
They did a town hall with Trump,
yeah.
did they?
And the idea was you gave him a platform, and my view is, no, I like that because I want the American people to see. You cannot take this election off and think, well, we fixed that because the threat is in some ways more severe.
But where do Republicans, normal, I'm going to call you normal Republicans like you, who I think have a clear sense of, it's evident in your whole career, which I'll go to in a second, sense of public duty, the importance of serving the community. There's a whole sense of Republican family values that clearly aren't manifested in Donald Trump. So where do they go if you, as you say, the real Republican Party has disappeared?
Well, for now, all thoughtful, principled Republicans need to go, and most have gone, to address the threat. I mean, I campaigned for Joe Biden, and they should do so again, because this is above any policy disagreements. I mean, we have robust disagreements in America about, as you do here, about all kinds of policy issues. Okay, great. That's what a democracy should be about. But above those disagreements are things that are common ground, the rule of law, for example. And so the voting and the activism has to be aimed at that. And we'll get back to important disagreements about taxation or regulation, but those things pale in comparison to the threat to the thing above.
And are you worried that, Biden is even older than Trump? He's beginning to look frailer now. Do you think people will come out for Biden?
I do, as they did last time, because sort of a backhanded compliment, but he's a lot better than the alternative. And so I think people will come out and say, well, I wish he was younger. I wish it was Kamala Harris. I wish it was Pete Buttigieg or somebody. Fine. But he's the candidate. And so what you're always choosing, I forget who said, Joe Biden says, don't choose between me and the Almighty, choose between me and the alternative. And so given who the alternative is likely to be, it's really important that people recognize that's the choice and engage on it. Don't take this one off. And again, Lincoln was fond of quoting his Secretary of State during the Civil War, who said, there's always enough virtue in America to save her. And then he paused and said, but just enough? And that was a description of our country in 1863. It's still a fair description of America. We'll be okay because there's enough virtue, but there isn't a surplus of virtue that allows people to take an election off.